Hello everyone, this is H to the Husky, and I'm here with HD. We are going to be bringing you a 2 versus 2 show match. It is brought to you by Tagalicious, brought to you, by the same people who made iRip. Definitely go check them out. We're going to have a link. What?
Yeah, no, it is brought by the same people who did iRip. Just wanted to mention
I was gonna say, I thought you were like, my computer's on fire. Anyways, yes, Tagalicious, go check it out. They make tons of awesome programs over at that company. We're gonna have a link down below. So if you want to introduce the players here, HD, we can get this bad boy started.
Yeah, right before I introduce the players, I do want to say go to the link on the bottom and check that link out. You can actually get a pretty cool program like Husky said, Tagalicious. It definitely helps you out sorting out your iTunes software. Same developer as iRip. Anyways, the players here are going to be Jinro from Team Liquid and his teammate gonna be none other than the little one from Team Liquid. So it is going to be the Team Liquid clan spawning on the bottom of Metalopolis, and their opponents on the other side of the map gonna be Artosis and QXZ.
I actually don't know too much about QXZ. I am very familiar with the other three players, though. Artosis, a very strong Zerg player who in Starcraft 1 played Terran for like a trillion years. I think he played it since basically the game came out. And everyone loves the little one. Who doesn't love the little one? And Jinro is from Team Liquid, also known as Frozen Arbiter. He's been playing fairly well, and they are a Terran team right now.
One thing I do want to mention is QXC is naturally a Terran player, but we actually spoke with him regarding this show match, and he said that he's good friends with Artosis. They play a lot of 2v2s, and they actually play, when they play 2v2s, Artosis picks Zerg, his standard race, but QXC picks Protoss, and so we're gonna have to assume that they have some strategies cooked up. They probably have some kind of synergy working with them, and I really am looking forward to this 2v2 show match series because both the teams have a lot of synergy within each other. Team Liquid on one hand, and Artosis and QXC on the other.
I am really interested to see how Artosis plays, because we actually were talking to Artosis a little bit when we were setting up this show match, and he said he's not very comfortable in 2v2. It's really outside of his comfort zone, because there's so much different strategies and depths to 2v2, and really there's no competitive 2v2 scenes. So I'm going to be keeping an eye on Artosis. I think that the little one is going to be inside his comfort zone, because really he has no comfort zone.
Right now we actually have some Raxes going up for the little one as well as Jinro, and they also have some fast gas on the way, both with Tech Labs already, and it looks like we're going to see a Reaper coming out for the little one as well as a Reaper for Jinro. So most likely they might try to split their Reapers up, or they might try to go for a single target. Do you think these Reapers are going to do any damage, Husky?
It depends who they attack. If they go for QXC right now, I don't think it will, because one Stalker can eat up an infinite amount of Reapers. Now, on the other hand, Artosis, they can do a lot of damage to him. It's going to come down to how he can control this Queen, and also since he's on one base, he has 6 Zerglings on the ramp as well. He should be fine, because by the time the Reapers get over there, he's going to have more than ample defense.
That's right, and especially the Queen is able to deal with Reapers really, really well. And as long as the Zerglings stay on the creep, they're actually pretty fast, even without the speed upgrade. And on top of that, Artosis didn't go for a fast expand. No one would actually do that in a 2v2. It's actually kind of suicidal. And so I think Artosis is just going to be fine. The little one coming in here with his initial Reaper, which is going to open this other Reaper's back door to able to get up into the base. And it does have one drone kill. Is it going to get a second one? No, it does not. I think it does have 2 kills. Currently at 2 kills on that Reaper. And so that guy's going to fall away. Not really doing as much damage as they could have.
Yeah, he did get 2 drones there, and that's pretty much the only casualties from that attack. Now, when you're doing a double Reaper build, it's really going to slow down your Marauders and your Marine count, so they needed to do more than that, and it didn't quite happen there. So that was just good control from Artosis. I mean, in a normal game, you only have to deal with 1 Reaper. In 2v2, he did have to deal with 2, and that last Reaper just got taken out there outside QXC's base. So I would really give the advantage here to QXC and Artosis, simply because those Reapers didn't do all that much.
Yeah, on Artosis and QXC, the nice thing is if you come off of a Reaper build and you don't do too much damage, you still have that Tech Lab technology. Reaper's only 50-50, and the important thing is they only invested in 1 Reaper each. They didn't try to go for like 3 or 4 Reapers. And so they are kind of transitioning right now into a Marauder build. But one thing to mention is they are both Terran, and of course since they're both Terran, they don't have the option of applying much early game pressure. On the other hand, QXC and Artosis looks like they're moving out with a very large army of Stalkers, as well as Speedlings, and Artosis has a Baneling's Nest, so we might be seeing some kind of dual combined Baneling bust, and it looks like they're going to go for Jinro.
This is actually really good play from both players because Baneling busts are very good against Terran if they mess up their wall in. So it's good for Artosis to go ahead and try this. Now it's also good Jinro and the Liquid One have a very strong wall. Look how many layers of buildings they have to get through to actually break through that. The Banelings aren't as good against those larger buildings, and usually you want to try and just kill supply depots with them. That's what they're best against. So we'll see if this is going to be enough. I don't know if that's enough Banelings, though.
Enough Banelings to perhaps kill the supply depot, but then Jinro has a couple of bunkers, like you said, another layer of depth of buildings right behind that, and as soon as Artosis saw that, he said, oh, screw that, we're getting out of here. We're not going to try to waste more Banelings on that building as well. And look at those two bunkers, currently filled to the max with Marauders as well, and it looks like Jinro now interested in throwing up an expansion inside his base, so he's probably going to lift that off pretty soon. Also has a starport on the way, and I think the nice thing for QXC and and Artosis right now, excuse me, is that they have control of the center of the map. They are able to fast expand, and there's not much that the Terran players can do about this.
Speaking of expanding outwardly, it does look like Artosis is taking his expansion right now, and basically Terran versus Terran, it's just like in Starcraft 1, you don't get that early map control, so if QXC and Artosis don't take advantage of the early game map control, there's just going to be a huge blob of Terran units once they finally combine forces that they're going to have to deal with. So I think at this point in the game, it may go to a more macro stage because QXC and Artosis realize they can't end the game early, so they're going to have to try and catch up because the Terran ball, when it moves out, it is very, very difficult to deal with, especially when there's two Terran.
You know what else is really interesting to note is if you look at the income tab, Artosis, out of all people, you'd think Artosis would be the macro king this game. He's actually really low on his harvester count, so you can tell that he's really out of his zone, out of his comfort zone, playing 2 versus 2. He's only got 19 harvesters, and I think the reason for that is because he's really invested in these Zerglings and Banelings and hasn't been able to do all that much damage with them. Look how many Zerglings he's got on the field right now. Over 42 Zerglings, and so he's going to have to start saturating if he wants to be able to get drones on his natural expansion.
Yeah, mentioning those Zerglings, like, seriously, he's continuing to produce Zerglings. I'm not sure what he expects to do with these, because you got to remember, they're both Terran players, they're both walled in extremely well, so you would think that he's just going to be macroing drones as this game continues. He must have lost an Overlord, because he is now supply block, and he's making overlords. He's not making drones. I'm not sure what his plan is here. Maybe gonna make a bunch of Banelings and try and do another bust, but I just don't really see that working.
We actually have a Viking from the little one moving out across QXC's base. It did snipe out another Overlord, so that was the reason for Artosis actually getting under supply. Eventually, QXC was able to take out of that Viking with his Stalkers, and right now it looks like Jinro is going to pump out a Raven, which is nice. I like the strategy of getting a Raven early on. The Raven has so many possible utilities to add to an army, from point defense drone to auto turret to the Seeker Missile, lots of different options. And look at this, Husky, we actually have a dropship loaded with 4 Marauders. We might possibly see some kind of a drop action right above the neighbor to QXC.
Yeah, we do want to keep an eye on that dropship. It is very good that he is using that dropship against the Protoss. You can actually try and snipe a tech building. Now, it's all going to come down to the positioning of the Stalkers. The Stalkers do have Blink, plus right now they're in a pretty good position to defend that. So this drop is going to come down right now. What he needs to do is not go for the probes, because Marauders kill probes very slowly. He needs to try and get either a Templar Archives or some other tech building.
I think, yeah, he does have stim as well. If he can stim on that Templar Archives and take it out. Look, it's researching Psionic Storm right now, and he is focusing the Archives, but no, the Stalkers blink in there and demolish the Marauders. Only 2 getting out of there, and the dropship barely making it out of there with his behind alive. So the dropship's going to return home crippled and nearly dead. And so Jinro, they're not making too great use of that attack. And meanwhile, the little one still hasn't expanded. He does have a command center coming up, but he is the last one to get his expansion. Jinro, on the other hand, he did fast expand fairly quickly, and he's got a couple bunkers in the front, so he's doing pretty well economically. And if we return to the income tab, you're right, Artosis has been macroing up and now at 36 drones.
Now, while that drop was going on, we actually just barely caught the end of another drop. I just caught a glimpse of it over at Artosis' base. If you take a look at that Spire, what just happened there was TLO also did an exact same drop with 4 Marauders, and he actually tried to stem and focus down that Spire as it was making. It was down to about 60 HP, considering they have 600 HP. It was really close, but that's not going to slow down Artosis' building of Mutalisk here. But Mutalisk against 2 Terran can be really hard to pull off.
I think so, because if you go with Mass Mutalisk off of Artosis right now, and on top of that, he's revealed that he's got a Spire. As you said, the little one dropped on it and tried to take it out. He's revealed he's got Mutalisk. Now the Terran player is going to be able to adequately defend. We have a couple of missile turrets for the little one on his main base right now, and on top of that, he's got a Thor, he's got Marines. It's going to be very difficult for the Mutalisk to deal damage. Meanwhile, a dropship going off for Jinro here, right into Artosis' base. So Jinro moving across the map with his own Marauder army and gonna try to do some damage here. Let's see what he can do. He's gonna get surrounded by the Speedlings. Good night, Marauders.
I think he was trying to snipe that queen there. It was a couple of shots away from death, and the Marauders actually could have killed it there, but they got stuck up on those Zerglings. Apparently they were just kind of deciding not to attack. So he was trying to do a queen snipe there. Obviously that didn't end up working out. I mean, he basically just gave 4 Marauders trying to kill a queen. Not really worth it. But again, the Mutalisk not that good against this army, so I still think they're in pretty okay shape.
Yeah, the Mutalisk and Zergling Baneling build from Artosis, I just can't quite agree with this. I really think Artosis needs to tech up. He needs to get some Infestors and possibly some Broodlords. I think Broodlords would be a huge benefit to this Zerg army, especially considering the Protoss composition of all of these ground army units right now. And look at this, we have some 3 Ravens from Jinro moving in from the north. I don't know how much damage this is going to be able to do, but they are going to unload some auto turrets on these probes.
Now this is actually a pretty good strategy to do if you are someone who likes to use Ravens. Although careful there, don't want the Ravens to get shot down by the Stalkers. Now the problem with doing it right now is that QXE has a bunch of Stalkers with Blink, and so these auto turrets aren't actually doing that much damage. Usually this does work, but good control here from QXE, able to push that out.
And the Mutalisk from Artosis coming in here to clean up those very expensive Ravens. That was actually a very huge hit. I can't quite agree with Jinro moving out 3 extremely expensive high-tech Ravens all the way out by themselves without any defense, and then basically just losing them for no economic gain or damage whatsoever. So Jinro there kind of tossing away a couple of those valuable Ravens that really could have come into play later on. Meanwhile, some Mutalisk moving out on the other side of the map, gonna try to poke in and do some damage. Gonna kill off this Marauder, actually, as the 2 Terrans looking to claim that gold expansion.
Yeah, now they're moving out to that gold expansion, and those Ravens, that was about 600 gas worth of Ravens. So they're really going to have to move out to try and recoup for their losses in that regard. Now, Jinro, I think, should continue to produce Ravens. I think those Hunter-Seeker missiles can be so strong in 2v2. And I do like the fact that they have a bunch of Thors out on the field. The Thors are basically good against everything when you have a big ball like this. So the map is about to be cut in half here as they're securing that high yield.
Jinro actually has some siege tanks along with the little one shelling the gold expansion of QXE. Very nice positioning on these siege tanks where the watchtowers are, killing off all of the probes except for 2, and the Nexus might actually, yes, the Nexus is in range of getting shelled. Holy, those siege tanks have incredible range right there. That Nexus is like just barely within the pixel of getting shelled, and QXE is gonna lose this Nexus, has no mining going on at the gold expansion. Meanwhile, Jinro grabbing the gold for himself, and it looks like the little one interested in grabbing the bottom hand expansion on the bottom right hand corner.
Artosis had his Mutalisks out. He actually misclicked them a little bit. He had them out in the center of the field and actually lost all of his Mutalisks. So his army size definitely not looking very good here because, like we were saying, the Mutalisks just aren't that good against those, Thors and Marines. They just melt away. And we've been mentioning these siege tanks up here on this high ground. This positioning is perfect. They're really abusing the map. I think that putting the siege tanks on the Xel'Naga watchtowers is one of the very strong things about this map for Terran. Completely abusing that to allow them to secure their own expansion while taking out an expansion. So they're definitely in a comfortable spot here, especially considering how many tanks and Thors they have right now.
I totally agree with you, Husky, especially if a Terran can control this gold expansion. What they can do effectively is place those siege tanks even behind the gold line, and they can shell all the way across the map and deny the other player of grabbing their own gold expansion. So over time, the Terran players from Team Liquid are really going to be bulking up, able to macro over, above, and beyond the enemy players. Now, it looks like QXE is interested in pushing out. He's got a pretty menacing Protoss army here, and I think, Husky, it's going to come down to those side storms and whether or not he can storm the crap out of the Terran army.
He's really going to have to be careful with his units here because the units pump up so well that the siege tank's able to do a lot of damage to those Stalkers. They did get taken out, and careful with the Ravens there. Good control so far, though, and they are going to back up and as they're going to get pushed away here by this big ball. But really good control here from Jinro on those Ravens. We're going to have to wait and see. He doesn't have Hunter-Seeker missiles yet. It is on the way, so we're going to see some pretty epic explosions here once those are finally out.
Exactly, and the one thing that the Protoss player can do to counter those explosions is using feedback from his High Templar, and that can actually do a lot of damage to those Ravens if QXC can get in range and feedback the Seeker missiles before they come out. And look at this, massive storms going down over the Gold Expo. Jinro losing several of his SCVs there, and the Templars actually getting taken out, but that's okay because they did so much critical damage. QXC and Artosis are doing pretty well, but I'm not quite sure I agree with Artosis' build here. He's actually loading up quite a few Zerglings and Banelings into his Overlords.
Now the Hellions actually running in here, seeing that they're getting loaded into those Overlords. Hellions are going to back out, but that scouting is going to tell him all he needs to know, that there's going to be a Doom Drop on the way. And these Overlords, though, are just filled with Zerglings and Banelings, so even if he gets inside the base, I don't know if it's going to do the amount of damage he needs, because they don't kill buildings nearly as fast as they do in Starcraft 1, especially since the buildings can clump up so well now. So Artosis is really going to have to get them out of position to make a drop like this work. And also there's a drop in the main of Artosis right now.
Yeah, Artosis actually pulled back to deal with that, and Liquid Jinro pulled out of there pretty convincingly, didn't lose any of his forces. But the thing is, Artosis, I'm not sure if he's going to be able to drop. Look at that, he's actually unloading his units because he revealed his drop technology to his opponent, so he's not going to do that right now. He's going to unload all of his Zerglings and Banelings. And one thing I just can't agree with Artosis is I really think he should be getting Roach Hydra right now, or something stronger than Zergling Baneling, because these Banelings and Zerglings are just going to get evaporated by the siege tanks currently holding the center of the map.
I think if I was a Zerg player right now, I'd be pretty sad going against Double Terran, because if you go the Roach Hydra, they're going to get owned by siege tanks and Thors. If you go the Mass Zerglings, they're going to get owned by the Hellions and siege tanks and just about everything. And so I think his only viable option right now is to get that Greater Spire, which is what he's doing, to try and get the Broodlords out, because then he can use the splash damage against the Terran, because they'll basically be blasting away your own Marines and Marauders. So while I think he may have stuck with Zergling Baneling a little bit too long, I think he realizes I need to get these Broodlords out right now, and that's exactly what he's going to try and do.
Yep, totally agree with you. We actually have some Dark Templar loading into Jinro's base, but Jinro takes care of that pretty easily with his Ravens getting in there to get that detection. He actually loaded some auto turrets down to deal with the DTs as well. Now look at the center of the map. Look at that command center being built in the center as well. There's a couple of options that Terran players can do with that. They can actually just transform it into a planetary fortress to further help fortify their location. And look at this siege tank depth line along with the Marines, Marauders, and the Thors. That is so scary if you were to run up into that. Like, I wouldn't even go into that location in a million years. That's like no man's land. And so the Protoss and Zerg army here, I mean, Artosis is going to have to think of something else, and I like what he's doing. He's getting the Broodlord, and this is something that I wish he had gotten a lot sooner. He's finally getting some tier 3 units to deal with the menacing Terran army.
Jinro trying to do a little baby drop over here at QXC's base. He was able to take out a pylon. That is about all he's going to get there, and he's getting stormed in the face, so that drop definitely not doing the damage they need. But they have such a scary army. I'm surprised they're even trying to do these little drops. It does look, though, like they're trying to push into this high-yield expansion right now.
Huge Psystorms going down on the siege tanks as that push was occurring, and Jinro actually losing a couple of his infantry units. The siege tanks are very softened up right now, and here comes the deadly Broodlords, but the Ravens coming in with those Seeker missiles, gonna launch on the Broodlords, but Broodlords just have so much HP, and the Psystorm is absolutely devastating this entire push, getting demolished, but more Seeker missiles landing on the Broodlords. I'm not sure if any Broodlords died there, but a lot of them at very critical HP, and down goes a Broodlord. At the same time, feedback going off on the Raven.
It's really funny to see those Hunter-Seeker missiles against Broodlords, because number one, Broodlords are so big they don't take as much splash damage because they don't clump up as well, and number two, they have so much armor and HP, it's very rare that you see them actually get taken out by that. But yeah, the battle is continuing here on the right side of the map. They really are trying to just, every inch right now matters, because if they can secure that high yield, keep it going, then they can keep themselves in the game. If they lose that high yield, then they are definitely in terrible shape.
This is an absolute battle for territorial control from both teams right now. Just every inch, like you said, really matters. And both players using every single spell they can under their arsenal, from point defense drone to Hunter Seeker missile to feedback. Everything coming into play as both players trying to secure a gold expansion or trying to take out the other gold expansion. And this is the beauty of Metalopolis. Look, there's 3 more point defense drones going down, but the feedback going off on the Ravens after the point defense drone, and now beautiful Psystorms being cast. We even have a Ghost in the mix, EMPing some of these Stalkers right there. Just an insane battle from both teams.
Such a high APM battle here. I do think that they may have overextended themselves, Artosis and QXC. They kind of ran out of units there. But there, like you were saying, man, there were so many spells back and forth. I don't know how these players do it to micromanage that much stuff. So a very epic battle here, and it almost seems like we're back to square one. The only thing that can tell the story of how that battle went is the units lost tab.
Units lost tab, like you said, showing that, Artosis and QXC actually really down in the units lost tab, losing several more in terms of resources, and that is not a good story. Actually, if you take a look at the army tab as well, it looks like Team Liquid is currently massing a much larger army. So in all, they didn't really lose that many forces, and QXC is actually really low in the army count at a measly 63 supply, and this is bad. If QXC loses this gold expansion, you might be able to count him out of the game, and with that, it might be a really tough part for Artosis and QXC to actually win this game.
A very tense moment here as they are moving into this high yield. There's a bunch of Vikings here just chilling, waiting to take out those Brood Lords. So we are going to see a big battle right now. And I think that the two Terran players are probably going to have enough to just plow their way in here. But the Storm got to be eating up a lot of units here. How long can they hold on with just Storm, though?
I don't think they're going to be able to hold on very long at all. There are some Stalkers underneath to deal with these Vikings. But at the same time, the siege tanks starting to make work on the Nexus, and the Nexus may very well go down for the second time today. And if QXC loses this Nexus, man, he's going to be hard-pressed for minerals and gas. He does have 1,000 banked, but his gas is doing very low right now, and he needs gas for those Psy Storms. And if he, oh man, he just lost the Nexus, so now he's not going to really be able to pump out much more forces. He's going to have to depend on Artosis and Artosis' Broodlords, and unfortunately, the Broodlords just haven't been doing all that well against this massive Viking army.
There was a little Hellion raid in the top center, able to kill about 8 drones there just now. So, I mean, he lost all the Hellions, but it did end up, I think, being worth it. And since the Nexus did go down, they're going to try and go up this choke. The Storms are just happily eating up this Terran army, though. But he doesn't have that many High Templar. His army size is dwindling. And so now they have position over this high ground, and they're probably actually going to be securing this soon. And I do just want to mention that, well, number one, a couple of Marauders just sacrificed themselves. But there apparently TLO has a planetary fortress outside his natural, and you don't see that very often.
A planetary fortress chilling right outside his natural, maybe just to help against a possible, Zergling or Baneling attack. Look at these Seekers, Ravens coming in here, throwing down PDD, and then the Hunter Seekers going off on the Templars. Very nice by Jinro, and QXC coming into the Storm just a little bit, and look at this, we have a massive Doom Drop coming in, but the cargo is only holding Zerglings and Banelings. I don't know how much damage this is going to be able to do to a Terran player who does have the option of lifting off. Jinro here really has a massive army of Ravens. He could actually Seeker Missile a lot of these things down, but there's a ton of carnage going on in his base. Is he going to be able to hold this off?
Now the pathing in Starcraft 2, getting a lot of the Zerglings stuck, just now getting the good surround on these buildings that he needs. Is this going to do enough damage though? Because like you're saying, they don't kill buildings super quick anymore. And so once these Hellions get back up here to defend this, I don't think this drop is going to work. This is looking pretty dire for Artosis, and it doesn't help that he has a bunch of units just idling inside his base.
His units are doing like Ring Around the Rosie in the base. I think Artosis did this and kind of just forgot about it, because originally he was getting harassed so much by those Hellions and in the dropships, but now he's kind of just forgot about that army. And I think it's really comedic that Jinro and TLO launched Seeker Missiles to deal with those Zerglings and Banelings, even though it was doing friendly fire damage to all the buildings down below. But hey, that's just how Terran roll. They don't care about friendly fire. And look at this massive siege tank line has inched their way forward and basically stolen QXC's gold. Meanwhile, massive battle right here between the Corruptors and the Vikings. The Corruptors using Corruption on the Vikings, but just so many point defense drones are blocking all of the Corruptors' attacks. There's like 4 point defense drones here, and the Storm trying to clean up along with the Broodlords. Massive battle here.
This is literally an uphill battle here for Artosis. He's trying to basically take this by himself, but his partner QXC ran out of steam, and so it was a good choice by Artosis to get massive amounts of Corruptors and Broodlords. I think that was his only viable option, but this is not looking good. The Battlecruiser is able to clean up house, and it does look like QXC gonna tap out, and I can only imagine Artosis is gonna follow suit.
Both players GGing there to Team Liquid, and so the Little One and Jinro taking game number 1. We should mention that this show match is a best of 5, and of course the winners are awarded some money. I believe it's something like $500, and so stay tuned, guys. We are going to have game 2 on the way. Thanks a lot for checking us out, and once again, make sure to check out the link down below. That is Tagalicious, a very cool app, sponsoring once again yet another awesome StarCraft 2 event.
Here we go.